It's the Emit Blackwell Show, searching the web for the most creative, intriguing, and captivating people in the world.
Welcome once again to the Emit Blackwell Show. Before we begin, I would like to thank you all for listening. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this podcast. This episode is brought to you by BookbannersEtc. and Willow Kestrel Jewelry. If you enjoy the show and would like to become a sponsor, you can by contacting me directly at emit.blackwell@gmail.com. On this episode, I have the intriguing author Chase Erwin. Chase holds an Associate of Arts and Bachelor of Science degree in Communications from the University of Phoenix. He has also worked in television, web journalism, screenwriting, clues for quiz shows, and of course, novels. He has written 2 dramatically different series, the Bloodbound series and the Memoirs of Able Mondragon. His non-stereotypical approach to his characters and their stories is what makes him a unique author in his genre. So without any further ado, let's begin. In the first installment of the Memoirs of Able Mondragon by Chase Erwin, Able was forced into a world of magic and mystery when he and his brother were abducted from their humble farm. Now he begins a lifelong struggle for sanity and survival as he learns how to harness new and bizarre magical abilities while trying to piece together just why he was chosen by his captors, the Covenant of the Grey Raven. Next, in Echoes of Demons, the Covenant of the Grey Raven had turned Able Mondragon into a deadly lab experiment, using him as a killing machine. Now free, Able must not only harness his newly developed magical powers, but reconcile the dozens of deaths he was involved with. As his journey continues, he meets a group of new friends, some of whom harbor personal demons of their own. Get your copy of the Memoirs of Able Mondragon by Chase Erwin at Amazon.com today. And I am here with the author, Chase Erwin. Chase, how you doing?
I'm doing quite well, thank you, Emit.
All right, and so when did you actually begin writing?
I think you could trace that back to when I was 8 years old. It was never published, of course, but I modeled a book after the Ramona series by Beverly Cleary. And it was just about this girl going to school and her crazy friends. And it was named after my horse, Molly.
Oh, you have a horse?
I had a horse.
Oh, you had a horse.
My mom had a horse farm out here just outside of Austin, and she gave me a horse for, I think, my 7th birthday. Had her for about 2 or 3 years.
Wow, that's incredible, though. I mean, to have a horse, I mean, those things honestly just scare me to death. But that's only because I've had to ride one, and I'm not very good at it. So now, you have written 2 series, Bloodbound and the Memoirs of Able Mondragon. How do these 2 series differ?
Well, I think, first of all, the setting of each is incredibly different. Mm-hmm. Bloodbound took place in modern-day Texas, and it dealt with a vampire who was also a secret agent. Mm. It was me trying to chime in on both the vampire craze that was going on at the time. This was about 2007. Mm-hmm. And also trying to write gay fiction where the fact that someone is gay was not their overarching trait. Meanwhile, Able is based off a world similar to that in Dungeons and Dragons, though I should stress it doesn't really reference the characters or places from that franchise, legal purposes. And I'm trying to address the same issues in the tabletop role-playing world and fantasy fiction world. Gay people that aren't there just to be the token gay person, and they're not there just to be sexual and titillating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. So now in your Bloodbound series, you incorporate the intriguing and beautiful relationship between Hunter and Tyler. Although this is a vampire story through and through, you still build a love story into this series. What helped inspire this? Well,
thank you for calling it intriguing and beautiful. That that was very flattering.
The way I see it, love is love. And I'll tell you one thing. I've read some amazing stories on Wattpads. I actually was talking to a guest not too long ago about this. It's just intriguing to me when people look at a story and they see it as either gay fiction or non-gay fiction. It still has the same elements. The relationship is still there. The emotions are still there. So anyhow, back to the main topic on hand here. So what did help inspire this story?
Well, like I mentioned, I really wasn't seeing gay fiction that wasn't overtly sexualized. And maybe I wasn't looking in the right places, or maybe that audience has been underserved, possibly a bit of both. And I wanted to see a story that was part mystery or part adventure, but also be a domestic tale between a gay couple struggling to work, live, and love together. And in this strange way, I kind of mashed the two together, where it was just generally accepted that these main characters are gay, and it's generally accepted that these characters were vampires. And it wasn't really a point of contention for many of the other characters in those stories.
Yeah, definitely. So, and your husband's name is Tyler. You recently got married. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
And how long have you been married?
We were married in November of 2015, but we have actually been a couple since 2009.
Wow. So how did you guys meet?
I met him over Xbox Live, of all things. We had a mutual friend in my former roommate at the time, and one day I was just really bored, and I turned to him and said, "Let me talk to one of your friends. Just pick one." And he picked Tyler. We just started talking, and we found that we had so much in common, and gradually it was a whirlwind romance.
Wow. That's incredible. And, I'm so happy for you. And it's something that you're doing with your writing that really kind of, like I said, it's intriguing. The fact that you don't over-sexualize it, the fact that you just turn these into normal characters just like anybody else would, that really shows a lot about your personality. Especially as a writer, you write a lot of yourself into your stories. Any writer does. And it's really incredible to me that you're able to do that and not over-sexualize it to the point to where it's like it has to be this way because it's gay fiction, and that's one thing that really kind of drives me crazy, because I know that people stereotype when they write just naturally, okay? But the fact that you're able to write this in so eloquently, I mean, it's really nice. It really is. It's like a breath of fresh air.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Again, not prepared. I'm blushing. You can't see it, but I'm blushing.
Yeah, that's why this is a podcast. It's great.
Yes. I when I was writing, I was kind of falling into those stereotypes, and just because that's all I'd been used to seeing. And I had to take a lot of effort to say, the whole reason you're writing this is because you want a broader audience to know that gay people are not just sex-crazed perverts, that some in the media might want you to believe. They're normal people with normal relationships, the same struggles as everybody else. And, putting all that sex in kind of pushes away that broader audience that you're going for. So I had to keep that in mind every page I was writing.
Yeah, and the character development, you can only go so far with that. With 50 Shades of Grey, okay, it was great story, but I'll have to tell you, it kind of limited a lot of the character development. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that can really destroy a story. I mean, one thing that I didn't like about 50 Shades of Grey was that it was just like, it was straight up word porn.
It was titillation for the sake of titillation.
Yeah, exactly. All I could picture, and I hate to say this, but my grandmother sitting there reading these Fabio books, and I'm thinking to myself, this is the kind of stuff my grandmother would love.
Yeah. I will say there is one brief sexual moment in the first Bloodbound, and it's I restricted it to maybe one sentence in the entire book, because I was debating whether to have it in the book at all, but I just felt that it was the apex of this part of the book. I'll mention it, then you get it from that point on. They're having a loving relationship, and yes, that includes intimacy, and I didn't feel the need to bring it in there anymore.
Well, I mean, you have to do it the way you want to with your book. I mean, it's good, So now you've also done some work with GLAAD. Tell us a little bit about that experience.
Yes, I am a dues-paying member to GLAAD. It used to stand for Gays and Lesbians Against Defamation, but they have since de-acronymed, or I don't know the terminology for that, just known as GLAAD now. I worked in local news from 2012 to 2016 across 2 different cities, Huntsville, Alabama, and here in Austin, where I currently live. And in both places, I wanted to make sure that coverage of LGBTQ issues was fair and didn't use problematic terminology. And this was especially important in 2015 when marriage of gay couples was deemed legal in all 50 states. At that point, and since then, I just keep the GLAAD handbook, at my desk. And when I was working in news, whenever we covered LGBT topics on air or online, I took it upon myself to, personally vet the story to make sure that it met with the GLAAD standards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and having a book of standards like that is, it's nice to have it, and this is just my personal opinion, but when it comes to standards of how we treat each other, there really shouldn't be a handbook. It's just, you respect each other. You care about each other. Here's one thing that I've always believed when it comes to gay or homosexual, LGBTQ, anything like that. The way that I see it is, you can love anybody you want. When you start showing hate towards another person, that's unacceptable. Because it is, to me, it's like the world is so full of hate that when you are willing to love somebody outside of the norms, that's love.
Right.
So it's like, I don't know how to describe it in such a way, but basically, if you love somebody enough to love them for who they are, doesn't matter who they are. You know what I'm saying? And when it comes down to hating somebody, hating is just unacceptable on all realms. Okay, so
the way I've often seen it is, it takes absolutely no effort whatsoever to love. It takes a lot of outward effort to spew hatred and to, get all up in people's cases about the way they are.
Yeah, or hold grudges.
Exactly.
They've even talked about that in science, where basically it takes more energy to hold a grudge and to be angry at something than it is to just let it go. It really is crazy to me. But anyhow, we will be right back after a message from our sponsors. We're going to talk more about your books, and we'll be right back after this message. Have you ever found yourself looking for a gift but just can't find something that's unique and different? There are many online shops to find jewelry, but most of those sites carry manufactured creations that are mass-produced. The internet is at your fingertips. You shouldn't have to travel through all the realms to get something amazing. At Willow Kestrel Jewelry, you will find handcrafted creations. Whether you are looking for a wire-wrapped pendant, natural shells, or beautiful precious gemstones, you will find it all at Willow Kestrel Jewelry Shop at Etsy.com. Willow Kestrel Jewelry uses genuine gemstones, including amethyst, moonstone, citrine, rose quartz, larimar, malachite, sapphire, and many more. You can make it rain with gemstones. I know I did. And it felt like I had been transported back in time to when me and my friend had to take a ring back to a mountainous volcano and toss it in to save the world. Now you can use the coupon code Blackwell20. That's Blackwell with the number 20 to save 20% at checkout. Search Willow Kestrel Jewelry under Shops at Etsy.com today. In a world full of obstacles and haphazard graphics, one company has broken the mold of building amazing book covers, banners, video trailers, and more. Book Banners, Etc. is your premier source for the most epic designs. Constructed from the mind of independent author Lynn Lamb, Book Banners, Etc. is dedicated to making your dream a reality. They offer an array of marketing materials at affordable prices. If you're looking for book covers that pop, banners that captivate, swag for signing, and alluring video trailers, stop by www.bookbannersetc.com. That's bookbannersetc.com. Imagine your world, then make it epic with www.bookbannersetc.com. All right, and we are back. Now, you've also written for television, web articles, screenwriting, and clues for game shows. How does this impact your fiction writing?
Yeah, it's the full Renaissance bit, as they say. They actually have not intersected that much. The web articles were part of my duties working in a newsroom, and from time to time, I would contribute to sites of other topics that interest me: tabletop gaming, television history, and the like. Television has played an active role in my life right from the cradle. The family legend has it that I learned to read and write through a combination of Wheel of Fortune and TV Guide.
That works.
and I believe it. There was a show called You Can't Do That on Television.
Oh, yes, on Nickelodeon.
On Nickelodeon.
Yes.
And one of my few credited TV credits was actually a sketch that I wrote for an animated fan-supported tribute. It was called You Still Can't. And I think there was just 2 little bits that I wrote in there from a 60-minute special. And a friend that I worked on with that, who lives a few hours away from me down in Beaumont, came to me several times for help in writing taglines for commercials. And just about 3 or 4 years ago, he asked me to write the questions for a local-oriented game show that he'd managed to get the Fox station in that market to air. And I think that if I were to get a second career in the next few years, it would be writing for game shows. I think that's where I'm in my element.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, you mentioned Nickelodeon. You can't do that on television. I mean, that's like the origin of the Nickelodeon slime. I mean,
absolutely.
That and Double Dare. I mean, it was just so cool. Such a great time frame that was. Man, I miss those shows.
Me too. And I'm so glad that Double Dare is back. I actually got to meet Mark Summers last year. There's a documentary about him that's about to have wide release, and he went and showed it at the Alamo Draft House. And after the screening, he asked trivia questions. Those who got questions right were able to perform a physical challenge on stage. I got up on stage. I won my physical challenge, and that is the single greatest moment in recent memory.
Oh, that's great. So now your most recent book series, The Memoirs of Able Mondragon, takes a more magical approach. What helped inspire that whole idea?
Once again, you can thank Tyler, my husband, for that. He very adamantly asked that I join his Dungeons and Dragons group. And until then, I had actually kind of looked down my nose at role players, not for any real logical reason. It was just I didn't understand them, and I chose not to understand them. But I gave it a try, and I developed this character who had magical powers that had been forced upon him. In the D&D world, sorcerers are born with these magical traits. And I thought it would be interesting to explore, what if you weren't born with these magical gifts? What if you had no intention of developing magic and it was forced upon you? And he had to learn to control these powers while surviving against, the typical monsters that you would find in this type of world. And I found that once I created Able, I couldn't stop thinking about him. I wrote backstory for him. I wrote journal entries for him. And it was a very short period of time that I knew I had to create something out of this. And hence, the Memoirs of Able Mondragon.
Yeah, and the funny thing that you mentioned, the fact that you were hesitant to even get involved in Dungeons and Dragons, I played Dungeons and Dragons once when I was younger, and my friend had done the same thing, hey, let's play some Dungeons and Dragons. And as you sit there and you start to play, and I didn't really get the rules very much, but, I guess it takes years of experience. But anyhow, when you start to play, you realize that you are creating a live story with multiple people creating on multiple levels. And it's almost like, have you ever heard of those like group think type things where they'll get together and they'll come up with a story together. And most of the time this happens for like TV shows. I'm sure you're probably aware of what happens is that they all sit around, they come up with a storyline, they start to block it out, and then they decide, okay, this is where we're going to go with this story. The same kind of concept falls into the D&D world. And honestly, I am surprised at how many creative people are in the D&D world, and they don't even realize it. They don't realize that half of the things they're coming up with are incredible stories.
And we're kind of on the cusp where that's changing. Critical Role, the web series, just launched a Kickstarter for an animated special based on the stories that they've been telling for the last 2 or 3 years. their goal was $750,000. They are now at almost $4.8 million
Wow.
of contributions, and that's purely from fans. And that just goes to show this is the spark that's lighting the blaze. Many more people are getting into D&D. They're finding out that they can tell compelling stories, and they are running with that concept. And I, for one, am pleased to see that.
Yeah, and the fact that D&D has all these books for the rules and the ways that the worlds are created, and then you have to come up with the rest of it. It's almost like having, just like any writer would have like a structured outline. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And then you build on that. But kudos to Tyler, your husband, for getting you into this, by the way.
Yes. Again, he's not a very forceful person, but, you know, he believes in this story. It's helped him. We both suffer from mental problems, depression, PTSD, and it was a very therapeutic outlet for him. Mm-hmm. And I found that to be the same for me.
Wow, I would have never thought that would be a good therapeutic outlet, but I guess it does make sense. It really does. So now, in your most recent addition to the Memoirs of Able Mondragon series, Echoes of Demons, Able must reconcile the dozens of deaths he is involved with, and this intrigues me. Tell us a little bit more about Able and how he faces this conflict.
I have to craft my response to this very, very deliberately, because there's going to be stuff revealed in the third one that I'm writing that will help explain that. But something that we learn in Captivity, in the first book, is that while he had these potions tested on him, he was essentially put in a sort of cockfighting situation where he and another prisoner would kind of fight to the death using these powers. Once he's out of captivity, he is haunted by the spirits of those that he killed or those that he thought he contributed to their deaths. And he decides that if he's going to have these powers the rest of his life, he needs to devote himself towards the path of goodness and fighting off the evils in this world.
Wow, I like that. It's a really intriguing way of dealing with powers that you just obtained. You know what I'm saying? It really is kind of cool, because then he, you know, is able to do this in such a way that it's like, hey, if I'm going to use this, I'm going to use this. I'm going to do it, you know?
Right.
So that's great. That's really great. So now, what do you have planned for the future of your writing?
Well, as I said, I definitely want to continue the Able series. That floodgate is still wide open, and I'm getting ideas for 1, 2, 3 books down the line. I am currently in the middle of writing the third, and I'm actually going to give you an exclusive. I'm going to reveal the title of the third book on this show, if that's okay.
Oh, go ahead. We are all ears.
The third Able Mondragon book I've decided to call The Great Divide.
Ooh.
I'm not going to reveal much about it at this time, except to say Abel's fight between good and evil will come to a head in this book.
Wow, that I like the title. I really do.
Thank you.
And one thing too I've noticed about your books, especially the Able Mondragon series, those book covers are amazing. I really like the kind of cartoony, not really cartoony, I'd say more comic type style of image that you have on there. Did you do this, or did you have somebody commissioned to do it?
I commissioned this wonderfully multi-talented artist. He goes by the name Daniel DeNova, or on Twitter, Tartan Kiwi. Kiwi because he is from New Zealand. He, like I said, he is multi-talented. He can do artwork. He does voiceover work, cosplay. He plays D&D as well. So he knows exactly what you're going for when you say, I want to see a picture of this guy with electricity arcing from his hands. I've never had to say, no, that's not quite right. He knows exactly what you want, and he blows me away with each new piece that he does, and I'm going to stick with him throughout the series. I'm going to ask him to do the third one just as soon as I get close to completion of this one.
Wow, that's great. Honestly, I can't wait to see the cover of the next one. I'm super excited. But
me too. I have a notion in my head of how I want it to look, and I just know he is going to stun me once again.
Cool. So now, what advice would you give a new author who's just starting out?
I had my first book signing here back in February in Austin, and in the weeks leading up to it, I was starting to wonder what I would actually write in each book that I sold. You know, for family members and coworkers, you know, I could do something personal, but what would I say to the stranger off the street? And I hadn't come up with anything. And then finally, this mother came up and decided to buy a copy of each book for her son, who was like 7 or 8. And I said, be careful. This content may not be 100% age appropriate because there's a lot of violence. There's some swearing in it. And she said, that's perfectly fine. He's much more mature than he looks. And I said, you know what? I'll go with that. And I was thinking about what to tell him. And I came up with think, do, write. And if I were to have a mantra, it would be that. Constantly thinking, constantly questioning the things in your world. Do things, take action, make those changes you want to see, and write. I think about that quotation from Rainier Wilkie's Letters to a Young Poet, and I don't remember the words exactly, but to paraphrase, if you wake up in the morning and you can think of nothing but writing, you are meant to be a writer. It's something that no one can take away from you. So just, write your damn heart out. Write what you know. Write what you want. Just write.
Wow. And
so that's my advice.
And, you had mentioned, a kid who had come up and asked about these books, and you basically cautioned them saying, hey, there might be some violent content in here. I'll tell you one thing. I was reading Stephen King at the age of 12, and I loved it. And that was the thing, is my parents were more concerned about me getting into reading than they were about the content necessarily, because they're like, hey, at least he's reading, at least he's enjoying something other than, watching Nickelodeon, no.
Yeah. Because my grandmother who raised me, she didn't have a problem with either of it. She knew that I was spending too much time watching You Can't Do That on Television because I made a mess of our house when I was growing up based off that show. But she kept me very well supplied with books, always taking me to the library. And, she fostered all of my passions. And I have to thank her for instilling in me this love of the written word.
Yeah. Well, that's incredible. It really is. Well, we've come to the part of the show where either I put you through some kind of game or some kind of trial by fire, and what we're going to
the one part I can't prepare for.
The one part you can't prepare for. So here we go. This is going to be a game called This or That. Now, this is going to be a fast-paced game. Basically, you're going to get two choices, and you're going to have to decide between two of them. Okay, like for example, cats or dogs. Then you'll have to choose cats or dogs. And then for each one that you can go ahead and answer without any hesitation, you get a point. Okay. For ones that you hesitate for or you can't think of anything, that's when you lose and it gets switched back over to the other person. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna go first, and I'm gonna start asking you questions until I feel as though you're completely done. But because I just think that your mind is fast paced enough that you're gonna get these really right away. So here we go. So. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
All right. First one. Mac or PC?
Mac.
Okay. Diet or regular?
Diet.
Coke or Pepsi?
Coke.
Okay. Red?
You're not going to win this.
I know. It's like I'm asking you questions about things that you already know because you are you. So, okay. Cats or dogs?
Cats.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm a cat person too. So, and here's the very last one, because you're just racking up points like crazy. Let's see here. And I'm just running out of ideas. That's the problem. Let's see here. Ford or Chevy?
Ford. I don't drive, but
Okay. Anyhow, you won that round. Go ahead and start asking me.
All right. Super salad.
Oh, neither. No. Pizza. No. I'll go with soup.
Okay. Steak or fish?
Ooh, steak.
Planes or trains?
Oh, both of them were terrifying. Oh God. Let's go with planes.
Okay. Satin or silk?
Ooh. Silk.
All right. Fluorescent or LED?
Ooh, LED.
I'm totally with you on that one. Shower or bath?
Shower. All the way.
Okay. All right. How many of these do I have to do?
Do two more.
Okay. Blu-ray or 4K?
Blu-ray. I'm also old.
Yeah. And Superman or Batman?
Oh, Batman, all the way.
Okay.
All right. Well, you know what? How about this? I'm just going to give the points that I gained to you as a parting gift for being on the show. I want to thank you so much. You just walked away with, get this, 12 billion points. Now, the points can't be used.
Fantastic.
The points can't be used for anything. They can't be used for money. You can't exchange them for any goods. You might be able to use them in a D&D game. I don't know.
Inspiration, we call that in the game. Inspiration points.
Inspiration points. So thank you very much for being here on the show. It was such a pleasure having you. All right. And Chase, now where can people find your books?
It's very easy. Go to Amazon, the big monolith that it is. We have versions in paperback, Kindle, and also in Audible audiobook form.
Wow. That's impressive. That's really impressive. I'm so excited to see what you have coming up next. The way that you write, the way that you put your characters in the situations that they're in, and the way that you don't over stereotype, okay, is something that a lot of authors out there should hear and should also understand about your style of writing. So I want to thank you so much for being here on the show.
Thank you very much. This was a blast.
Yeah, it was fun. It really was. And this is Emit Blackwell signing out. Keep on reading and keep on writing, my friends.
It's the Emit Blackwell Show, searching the web for the most creative, intriguing, and captivating people in the world.